Because wouldn't last month's be episode 1?
No, there wasn't one last month. So it's probably on right now.
Okay, cool.
It's kind of a delay, so I'll just kind of talk, and whoever's watching can just.
Wouldn't last month's be episode?
Well, that was weird. Yes, yeah, I heard you. And so there's like a 20-second delay. So the beginning of this is going to be kind of funky, but that's okay. Sign into chat. Oh, man. Okay, so I got the speaker view. Just remember to mute yourself so your face doesn't pop up if you're not the one speaking, just in case. And I will begin. Welcome everybody to the very first official Nervous Ghost Press open mic. This is episode 1. Hopefully we'll have, 500,017 total episodes. That's our goal. We set it. We just set it right now. You can quote me in however many years if I don't get to that point. And we hope you're all happy, healthy, and warm. As always, Nervous Ghost Press is here, and we stand for our communities. We stand for everybody to come together, love together, heal together. These open mic events will be held once a month on every third Saturday at 6:00 p.m. Pacific. And you can always email me, email Brian, Kay, any member of the team. Go to our website, www.nervousghostpress.org for more information. I will put up the graphics soon. Anybody is welcome to participate, whether you are an emerging writer, a experienced writer, not even if you're a writer. You can be an artist, a dancer, a mathematician, a designer, a draftsman, anybody. We want your creativity. We want whatever comes from up here, influenced by in here, to share your art, your journey, your experience, your humanity, and your love. We hold our communities together through art. And something that I'll speak about in a little bit, just to kind of let us settle in here. You all have to hear me speak for a while before you get to hear the real people. So, it sucks for you, I suppose. But very quickly, stay connected with us. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and our YouTube channel, Nervous Ghost Live, which is where this is broadcasted. And it will be uploaded tomorrow. nervousghostpress.org, ghosts@nervousghostpress.org. One of the very big announcements that we have is we are finalizing and beginning to file for our official 501c3 nonprofit exempt status with the feds, with the state, and with whoever else that we need. And the reason we are doing so is because we realize that what we've been doing, what we want to do, our mission statement, and the reason that Nervous Ghost Press exists is for our communities, for all of our communities, our extended and our immediate communities, to bring us together, to show that art unifies us. Art heals us and art saves us more than anything can. And it brings people together who would otherwise hate each other, who wouldn't speak in the same room, who wouldn't sit in the same table and break bread. And we crush those beliefs and those violent and hateful ideologies and say that art is something from in here that we all have, with our trauma, our compassion, our pain, our anger. And we can turn that ugliness into something beautiful, into something that carries strength and that carries us forward through whatever it is that we have going on in our lives. And so, what is Nervous Ghost Press? For those of you who are new, maybe those of you who are new to us, new to these events, new to the literary world, Nervous Ghost Press was born by the community. It was born by individuals who did believe and do believe that writing saves lives. And Nervous Ghost Press exists to hold that in our hands, in our minds, in our hearts, in our bones, and that we look at all of those things that make us special, unique, boring, stupid, and everything else. Nervous Ghost Press stands for, as I've said, our communities, all of them. We especially stand for our underserved communities, as that's where we're from. And we've experienced and witnessed hate and vitriol and violence and whatever else. And we will still stand and we will still promote unity, love, community, passion, and everything that makes us people. Because art transcends it. It builds it. It breaks walls. It breaks barriers. And it connects us. And how do we do it? You'll find out. One other project that Brian, and I'll introduce Brian in a little bit, and the team that we're working on, is we're building a studio space in our local city here. And the purpose of the studio is to provide free workshops, writing, music, recording, art, and so on. We can have our community members, especially those who come from places where maybe art isn't thought of as a viable career option. It's not thought of something that can pay the bills. It's not thought of something that you can really use to support what you love in your life and who you are in your future families. We want them to know that it is and it can be. That we can have a passion that pays our bills. We can have a passion that makes us feel fulfilled and together and alive. And so, news on that will be coming up shortly, and we'll, document it because I think it's a fun process. I'm excited about it. Brian's excited about it. So a few updates with our contact information. You'll notice that the website is now nervousghostpress.org. The email addresses are now ghost@nervousghostpress.org. And so we're moving toward that identity with our nonprofit status. And as we file and as we get closer and closer to becoming what we feel is the best thing that we can to serve our communities as much as we hope and wish for. Another thing that I want to address is you will notice too that Nervous Ghost Press has had some personnel changes. And as with a lot of business and professional and non-professional, romantic and interpersonal relationships, things change. And one thing I would like to say is Nervous Ghost Press, and we stand for, and we still respect Chad and Michael, Ghost Chad and Ghost Michael, for the work that they had put in, the time and the effort and the emotional stress and intellect and advice and everything that we worked together so hard to create. We had made such a fantastic anthology, Writing for Life, available on our website. And so we want to pay respects to everybody. We want to honor the time that was spent together and remember and move forward. And so Brian, and I'll introduce Brian in a little bit, is someone that I've known for almost more than half of my life, someone that stands for and has lived through much of the same things that I have and many, many more. He keeps me grounded and tells me when to shut up when I'm being an idiot, which, is kind of a lot of the times. But Brian is our audio engineer, so he's going to make when we have the studio, he's going to make it flawless. When we post up our interviews, our artist interviews that we're working on, he's going to make the sound, solid, professional, as if we know what we're doing. And so Brian, just a little bit, say hi, introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce the first speaker.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hi, my name is Brian Aguilar. I come from Compton, California. That's where I was raised. Most of my life, I've had this art expression, but not really through writing, as most of you are on here. My art expression form was more on the side of, on the waves of sound, I guess I should say. I've always been very sensitive when it comes to hearing. So for me, tuning out and kind of aligning the different sounds that come into my life and putting them in different channels definitely helped me to be a little bit more focused and driven on my goals that I wanted to do. I started going to audio engineering school about a year and a half ago, 2 years and a half ago. I already did it as a hobby, but now as a professional, it definitely is a challenge because there's so much of a demand when it comes to audio needs and just making a name for yourself and your reputation, knowing how to kind of establish yourself as a pro. Um, but it's definitely an honor to be part of Nervous Ghost Press here. I've known Matt for about 14 years now. Definitely, like he said, also half of my life. We met in high school. We had an instant connection. We both were really good into drawing, um, and kind of had a little competition, see who, you know, can draw better or play guitar better, which is, which is cool. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely excited. I've been part of it of Nervous Ghost for a while, maybe like 3 months now, reading a couple of the manuscripts that Matt has sent me for the poetry contest. Has been a blast. I definitely don't have like credentials when it comes to writing, but reading literary pieces and how people put their hearts out into their writing and where they're hurting on their sleeves and through the pen marks that they create is definitely something that I enjoy a lot. And I like to learn new things every day and get to know a lot of people with better knowledge acquiring that I can get is them being part of this press company and moving it forward. But that's a little synopsis on me. I will spin it back to Matt and see what he has to say. But thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Brian. And the other person I want to introduce who's not here, but our new editor-in-chief, Dennis. Dennis is someone that I have also known for many, many years. And for much of my life has been somebody that I looked up to as an artist, as a writer, as a performer. And I'm very happy to have Dennis because whenever I wanted to paint something really good, he did it. And so having Dennis on the team with us is like, well, shoot, dude, I can just refer to you. You know, we can work together. We always build each other up. We always, like Brian said, compete and try and be better than yesterday and better than the day before that and better than tomorrow. And it's very nice to have Brian and Dennis with us, who are people that I trust with my life and the life of the people around me. You know, we've known each other so long. They're my brothers and my friends, you know, so it really makes me feel good. It makes me feel trusted and safe if I can. I'd also like to thank our other workers and our readers and our community members that help us and work with us and support us and who come here and, you know, join the events, because without you, there wouldn't be any events. And I would just be sitting here talking to the little green dot on my screen, making a fool of myself. So thank you, everybody who is here. And let me just make sure all my notes are correct. I want to share before I begin, and I'll read a few poems that I have just to get us started, to get us a little bit, you know, calm our nerves. I'll take the bullet, I guess, for everybody. And I want to speak to everybody out there who needs something, you know, who needs a space. And part of it is my alma mater, Mills College up in Oakland, is going through some troubles, and a lot of the alumni have shown how much support we have for each other, how much support we have for campus, for our professors, for those who had supported us during our time there and during our times there now. And one thing that I carry from it is what I learned about community and who my community is, what they are, where they are. And part of Nervous Ghost Press, part of our advocation for community and part of what we do to build up who we are and where we're going is to be that and to show anyone and to welcome anyone. If you are feeling lonely, if you're afraid, if you're scared, if you're hurt, if you're angry, if you're lost, you can email us, you can call us, you can tag us at us. It doesn't matter what it is. You can just email and say, hey, dude, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I want to be a writer, but I'm too scared to write how I feel. Well, we'll talk about it. And we'll have you here. And you can just watch and listen. You can just sit there and enjoy and absorb what's going on. And we can introduce you to other people in the community who feel the same way or who have felt the same way. And it's something that I hold very close to myself, and Brian and Kay and Dennis, we all hold together too, that, you know, without art, without writing, we wouldn't be here. And I know there are millions of people in the world who feel the same way. And it's something I always want to stand for, and I always want to push and promote. And so enough of me. Well, not enough of me, because you still got to hear my writing, but enough of all that stuff. So I'm going to read a little bit, and then Amanda, you're up next. So if you're not ready, please get ready. And I'll share 2 poems that I have here with you all. Notice how when needing someone the most, something that's been lost, waiting for, hungry for, fighting for, and dying for the most, wonder where it all went. Some things are meant to be fixed instead of washed away and tossed out into the warmth of others, hoping for just trauma, for some pain to feel worthy of the cause, as if the pretty petty life wasn't enough. Well, damn fool, send some my way. Skeleton keys, open backbones broken from years of bleeding out into Lunchables, PB&J pillow forts, egg and cheese burritos, and yes, the foil will keep them warm, at least until it's time to eat. I'll be back soon, so you better learn how to cook. Oh, buddy, did I? Cream cheese, caviar, don't get me started on butter, sugar, and scraped burnt toast, toasted with hands that hit with love, beat down ignorance until peeling oranges was second nature. Just grab one, and you'll see. How many times could you be shot and then create a legacy? Honored by strangers and country so that your hair was too afraid to go gray. Tell that story. Tell that story when looking for something to not die for. It isn't the desire that fades, but maybe, rather, perhaps something takes its place. So nightmares dream of shoe boxes filled with hopes and goldfish, reflecting in murky water, pearls, and muscles look pretty. Well, not all muscles, but some. When the light hits just right, the backhands don't. Words. Instead, wrote a song for the devil, sent it old school. Licked it, folded it, Messenger 64-bit facsimile space bound, I am dial up some controversy. I wrote a song for the devil, but well, the devil sings songs for me. It doesn't mean we're weak when we're alone. We carry their strength, pride, and with revolvers we aim true. They ain't true. Walking behind picket fences with crowbars, spat, spat, spat. If you show up empty-handed, take off your damn shoes. It doesn't mean we're weak when we're alone. Our hopes are carried by their strength, and our shame is built from their pride. Spit on their graves. We're spitting images, imaginary barbed wire conjured up from nightmares, but it was real life. And so we carry. But we do not carry their resolve. We do not carry their silence. We do not carry the reservation save for what we decide, what we build. We're stronger when we're together, but that does not mean that we are weak when we're alone. All right. So thank you, everybody. And I guess we're done. So see you next month and have a nice night. All right. So I like to ask everybody when it's your turn to come up, go ahead, say a little bit about yourself. I don't know everybody here, and so I don't want to introduce some and then leave you out because I feel kind of shitty about it. And But, say a little bit. Part of these that are so cool is there's so many strangers who are part of this event. And hopefully afterwards, you're not strangers anymore. So I'll introduce you by name, and then you can, say a little bit about who you are, where you're from, maybe how to get in touch with you. If you put your Instagram or your social media handles in the chat box, I'll go ahead and I'll put them into the YouTube comment section for everybody to contact and hopefully find your work. So Amanda, take it away.
Hello. My name is Amanda Kors, and I'm from Cupertino, California. I'm going to be reading 2 poems for you today from a manuscript that I'm currently working on about Harry Styles. If you don't know who he is from One Direction, a very popular boy band from when I was in high school. And I say it's about him, but it's more using him as a poetic device to talk about sexuality and disability. So I'll read the first one. Harry Styles has 4 nipples and I have sibling rivalry. Sitting in the corner, surrounded by windows, heater pressed to my back. Do you feel that pressure, that heat, that fire behind you to get your shit together? Do you feel the windows when you're shirtless, 4 nipples on display? The heat is too much, I move away. It relaxes my tight muscles. The scoliosis makes me tired. The heat, my anxiety pushing me through academia. I'm finally picking up my associate's degree 2 years after I've earned it. I shift my back again. Your arms never try to hide nipples 3 and 4. Girls still scream for your cock and throw their bras. Personally, I think nipples 3 and 4 are cute little nubs. Is that emasculating? Was it weird for you the first time you fucked a girl showing nipples 3 and 4? Did she still welcome you into her cunt like you're some rom-com lead? Nowadays, leads can be a little quirky. It's a calculated strangeness, marketable. My flaws aren't calculated. My spine is an S for sad, strange, and my lust and self-doubt back me into a corner much like this one. But I can't stop writing to stretch. My father says you have to suffer for education, and my professor said to write nonstop. I keep wiggling away from the heat, away from the pain in my hip. I can't get comfortable without disrupting the flow. I've never been brave enough to stand up or for my ground. Do you ever feel presented like nipples 3 and 4, slightly odd, extra, stared at? That's how I feel compared to my sibling. I'm the smaller, less impressive, crooked copy. The original set, my sibling, their peaks will always be bigger, higher, more pronounced, looked at first. I'm just lower on my mother's list of nipples to look at. Just below, just out of sight, enough to be confused as slightly larger than average moles. That's why I got my nipples pierced. And the second one, date thoughts from Harry Edward Styles. Styles becomes, yes, let's. After New Year's, I set up a dating profile on her. And it's fun, swiping, looking, liking. My roommates say this kind of thing is good for practicing flirting. I write the essentials, English major, Virgo, witch. On a separate square, looking for love, heart emoji. I message a few girls. Wow, they're pretty, but it doesn't lead anywhere. January 19th, she liked me. I like her back, figuring, sure, let's. Edward, change a D to an N becomes Warden. We message each other every day. Mid-February, she asks me out. We have our big gay date in San Francisco. We have a long walk on the beach with her dog. It's perfect. I like this, it's fun. She opens and closes the car door for me, and I've never felt more feminine and small, not held down the way men do, but held close. Harry misread as happy. We binge Stranger Things. I startle easily, but am saved by shitty campus internet that buffers and skips over jump scares. Until it doesn't, I scream and spaz. She wraps her arm around me. Wow, she's warm. We kiss at the end of the night. It's slow and soft, and is that tongue? Harry misread as hurry. At the tea shop, I get the same thing every day, cheese plate and energy drink. But this girl is like raspberries. At home, I go through a container of raspberries in one sitting, so they never go bad. I rush through kisses, so she doesn't know I haven't done it a lot. Harry misread as sorry. A week later in Cupertino, I text her about my anxieties. She gives me permission to be new. It caffeinates me more than any monster I've had. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. One thing that really struck me from the first one about the siblings. And I'll put your hold on. All right, everybody. So Amanda's information in the chat box. Now, also, if you have, and then I'll get back to what I was going to say. If you have any questions or comments, we'll have our Q&A discussion at the very end. Those Q&As are so much fun for me. And unfortunately, as far as this goes, that's all that matters. And it's a chance for everyone to ask questions to the speakers, for the speakers to ask questions to the speakers, and just really have a nice discussion and get to know each other. So one thing you said, about, siblings, and one thing that I've realized over the many years of my existence is I have 5 brothers, and my oldest brother is successful, then the next one was successful, then the next one was successful, and then I write poems, and then the next one was successful, and the next one was successful, and I was like, hey, wait a minute. I think poems are pretty good. I think they're pretty cool, but it's such a weird dynamic, and I think it's great to speak about it and to explore it and to really show that, we're just the other nipples, right? And so, all right, next up, and glad to have this person. First time I've met him. It's really cool. Our emails have been fantastic, and I'm very excited to listen to you speak, and hopefully you can join us in the future too. And so, everybody, this is Tomas.
Good evening. My name is Tomas Baisa. I'm originally from San Jose, California, but I'm zooming in from Boise, Idaho tonight. And I have a bunch of documents pulled up, and I have no idea which ones I'll read. So on a whim, I'll read 2. 2 flash pieces. So this one's called "And Then a Wind." Just before the train emerges from the tunnel comes a breeze that swells into a gust and then a wind. Some mornings it's hot, others cool. Either way, it helps me figure out what kind of day it's going to be. I can feel its first whisper on my face now, flowing from the tunnel and down the channel that soon will be stuffed by a speeding train, occupying every square inch between the platform and the far wall. Last week, a woman's terrier broke loose and chased a rat down there. A couple of us jumped onto the tracks and got the dog out just before the train burst out of the dark. It was exhilarating and terrifying, that stirring of air, like there was something inevitable in it. But I can't decide whether this morning's breeze is hot or cold because I'm a little distracted just now. There you are, walking towards me. Your dazzling up-and-coming sales manager smile outshines the train's lights winking in the tunnel behind you. You wave your gloved hand, like we're friends, like we have a connection because you work with my wife. Ah, Kenneth, I think you have no idea. It seems you're unaware that she and I have had, the talk about the conference, the hotel bar, the knock on her door later that night, the separate Ubers back to the airport. There have been tears, a few rough weeks. Our kids are quiet at the dinner table now. And in the bedroom, let's just say it's like you're there, and I'm not into threesomes. The breeze picks up and makes the sweat on my forehead tingle. You call out my name, and I marvel at the pure, uncomplicated warmth of your voice as it competes with the surge of possibilities from the tunnel. I read this morning that police narrowly averted an act of violence in the London Tube. Don't you love that they call it the Tube, Kenneth? that literal Brit whimsy. We just call ours Bart. How utterly boring. We really do need to spice things up somehow. The gust is now a true rush, the force of it ruffling your long coat and curly blonde hair. Could you be any more handsome? I can see what my wife saw in you, what she still sees when you pass in the hallways or glance at one another in meetings. Those broad shoulders block sight of the train as it leaps from the tunnel. You've shifted your briefcase from one hand to the other, and you're coming in for the shake. Elbow bent, shoulder cocked at that angle, just so, the way men do. The wind has become a hurricane. I take your hand firmly in mine, glance down at the tracks. I think of the terrier and the rat, and the inevitable wind. Ah, Kenneth, damn our luck. This wind is hot. It is so unbearably hot. And then the second I'll read is a flash piece called Hungers. A plate of rice, beans, and my mother's turkey and steaming mole poblano. The tortilla comes whisper close to the spicy chocolate sauce that's only slightly darker than Brenda Moreno's cinnamon skin. Hey, espérate, we need to talk. I roll my eyes and stare at the plate, waiting. Mijo, that's a good dinner, que no? Yes, Mom. I drop the fork. The flour tortilla is warm in my palm. Can you remember a time when you were ever hungry, Mijo? I fold the tortilla between my fingers and close my eyes. It's soft and velvety. I shift on my chair. Oh, fuck. Am I really fondling a tortilla in front of my own mother? Yeah, I say. Ahorita. Right now. No, I mean, cuando tenías hambre for real, and you didn't remember the last time you ate, and you weren't sure the next time you would. Yes, I can. I hate how my voice sounds. I hate being 14. I hate that my palm is getting all sweaty. And if I keep squirming on my chair, my mother will know. She will know. Hell is a place where a wilting tortilla gives you a hard-on at the dinner table. No, you can't, she says, because you've never felt hunger, have you? No, Mom. I mean, yes. I mean, I'm hungry right now, Mom. How could you possibly know what hunger is? My fingers cling to the tortilla's fading heat. I can't stop thinking about it. Her. I know, Mom. I know because Brenda told Nicolas to fuck off and started eating lunch with me, not him. And then Nicolas, Alex, and Martin started calling me Marica and bitch and Joto. And all of Brenda's girlfriends just giggle at me when I walk by. And one of them asked me why I haven't given it to her yet. And Brenda says tomorrow's perfect because her parents are working late. I want to shout everything so that she'll know the truth about me, about what's going to happen. My mother's almond eyes narrow to slits. How many times do I have to tell you, Mijo? You have never known hunger. She runs a hand through thick blue-black hair. For the first time, I notice a faint stripe of gray just above her ear. She sighs and cups my cheek. Her palm is cool against my skin. Daniel, when I was your age, I ate once a day if I was lucky. Your abuelita would come home from the cannery, and maybe your tias and I would get a tin of tomatoes. Maybe even some eggs if the chickens were having a good week. I think about my grandfather's chickens and how I only see them on Thanksgiving or some cousin's quinceañera. It never occurred to me that actual eggs could come from those scrawny things. Brenda's parents don't have eggs or don't have chickens. They have a Shar-Pei. Daniel, my mother says, her voice softer now. Sometimes I think that I failed you because you don't understand what it means to truly need. I plunged the tortilla into the mole. A thin layer has congealed over the cooling sauce and it doesn't look so good anymore. Need. How do you not understand how bad I need this? I pushed the tortilla around the plate, swirling together the rice and beans and guajolote. And then I wonder if they use weird ass words like guajolote at Brenda's house, or if they just say turkey. And then I wonder what the regular Spanish and not Mexican word for turkey is. And why do I know how to say cock and the C word in Mexican, but not the school Spanish word for fucking turkey? My mother tears off a piece of tortilla and flicks it in her mouth, her strong Indian teeth quickly turning it to mush. Dale, she says. Her eyes are moist and hint at a disappointment I think she was born with. Go on, before it gets cold. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us and being part of this. And something that, struck me first is, hearing you speak is, so much better than reading. And I think that's something that is, I'm always happy to just hear it from the speaker. And your words on hunger and then hunger, they're just so much different. And I recently made masa with my hands. I did the old school Aztec style with the ashes, and I really wanted to, try and do it that way. And my hands hurt the next day, and there's just something that goes into it when your body is there, and when you're putting your bones and your blood into these things. And it's something I think of our ancestors and those who came before us that either sometimes we take for granted or we just forget. And so hearing it is like, have you ever been hungry? And I'm like, oh hell yeah, that was awesome. So thank you so much. And I'm excited to hopefully ask you questions and maybe have other people ask you questions, and we can join on later on. So thank you again. Up next, we have somebody who is a familiar face. Very excited. They are featured in our first anthology, Writing for Life. It's available at nervousghostpress.org. And our journals. So when you are hungry, you can write down all your recipes, write down all your notes. You can write down, oh shoot, I don't want to put cabbage in this again. I got to put something else. And so very happy to introduce the next individual. And I'm very, very fortunate and happy to see you also. So everybody, Helen.
Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it. I've got 2 flash pieces to read. I'm old school. I'm reading from the actual volume. The first one is called Scars, and that will become obvious from its subject matter. I am the tiny scar inside your lower lip. Do you remember? You were so little then, it's doubtful, but you've heard the story time and time again. The memories imprinted, if secondhand, of how your lip split, spilling blood when you tripped on the back stairs of that old house in Florida. You were only 3 then, but very brave nonetheless. Years later, your sister admitted in passing that she'd been the cause of it. Yes, she'd chased you, taunted you, made you fall. She found it so amusing, that fear she'd instilled in you, that control she'd exercised over you. Do you remember what she said in answer to your mother's worried inquiries? She fell. That was it. You didn't contradict her, for you had fallen after all. You'd have done anything for her approval, but it never came. I am the short, jagged scar running for an inch down your outer right calf. I am raised and wider than I should have been, for you wouldn't stop picking at me. I'm the result of that ornery pony's attempt at unseating you. He ran you up close to a barbed wire fence. It tore at your jeans. It tore at your flesh. You stuck to his back like a cowboy, ignoring the searing pain, biting your lip, tugging hard with your arms to pull him away from the razor-sharp barbs. You won your battle of wills against that little Thelwell reject, didn't you? You wear me proudly, like some hard-earned battle scar. I am that thick spot near the tip of your right middle finger. That's where Mr. Schown, your 7th grade biology teacher, stabbed you with the 3-pronged lancet during that blood typing unit. You were his designated guinea pig. Your sister had been teacher's pet in his class before you came along. He picked on you mercilessly, comparing you to her at every possible opportunity. You never quite measured up, even now. When you close your eyes and rub your thumb over the tiny rough spot where I interrupt your otherwise smooth fingertip, you can conjure up his sadistic grin, can't you? We are the collection of perpendicular gashes over the veins of your wrists. No, you weren't serious, just curious. We didn't have the desired effect, though, did we? Your mother never noticed us, but we're here still, like tiny crosses, reminding you of troubled days and even worse nights. There were some relatively calm years in a physical sense, at least, as you settled into a routine of studying and drinking and having sex, though not necessarily in that order. We're not so obvious, are we? We're hidden within some dark recesses of your collective consciousness, reminding you, nagging you, chastising you, judging you. We don't want you to repeat those old patterns, for they nearly killed you, didn't they? I am your episiotomy. You thought I'd never come. After 28 hours, 4 separate shifts of interns, residents, nurses, and med students, the looming threat of a C-section, I didn't fail you. I'm that thickness you can barely feel, that tiny line you never see. I am the scar tissue that surrounds your jaw, enveloping it like an unwelcome visitor. I make it lock when you're cold, nervous, or afraid. As that outward scar by your eye has lightened, faded, I've worsened, tightened my grip. I make you wear that mechanical contraption to bed, that appliance, that horrible metal and plastic thing that you hate and resent. I remind you, don't I? I remind you of that night he was trying to kill you, of that punch that connected with such might that your head left a concave dent in the sheetrock behind you. No, others can't see me. I hide from them. They aren't accosted by my presence. It's you and me, babe. You may have left him, but you couldn't leave me behind, could you? I'm the inch-long scar on the outside lower quadrant of your right breast. That's where they excise the lump and surrounding tissue, leaving you with a bit of a pucker. It's noticeable only to you, isn't it? It was just a fibrous mass, completely benign, innocent. You touch me often, though, reflecting on the alternative. I still have the power to scare you, don't I? We are the spider webs of scar tissue that work our way around your ovaries, your fallopian tubes, your uterus. We're endometrial tissue ravaging your insides, making you infertile now for many, many years. You managed to have your son before we established our stranglehold, before they assaulted us with their lasers, before we grew back with a vengeance, populating the very incisions that they used to attack us, remove us. We're the crisscross patterns in your navel. We're the only outward sign of the 3 times they tried to rid us of your endometriosis, but they failed, didn't they? But you know now it's pointless to try again. You wait it out, hoping for an early menopause. They've tried to convince you to rip it all out, but you resist. You haven't the time, you tell yourself. But the truth is you don't want to admit defeat to your body. You don't want to lose your womb, empty chasm that it is. You're afraid you'll lose that deep, pounding vibration that comes with your orgasms. Who's to say you won't? You're hardly perfect, are you? No, you are some of all your scars, both visible and invisible. We will be with you always, whether you choose to acknowledge us or ignore us. But if you accept us, you'll accept yourself. Not such an easy thing, is it? One more. Okay, this one isn't quite so personal. This one is just recently the Ocotillo Review from Callisto Gaia Press. It was just published 2 months ago now, and it's called Echoes. Thud, thud, thud. Belinda quickened her pace as she walked her daily route. The circular neighborhood street she knew so well. The little free library stocked by the widow. The fescue and Bermuda grasses fighting for dominance, the weeds winning out. The mature oaks, the fragile Bradford pears, the crepe myrtles in every shade of purple, pink, red, dotting the landscape. The 1-acre lots, the dwellings older than those in surrounding neighborhoods, but lovingly maintained. The pockmarks and swirls in the asphalt from heavy construction vehicles and weekly trash service trucks. The neighbors who waved and offered greetings, smiling as they did. Thud, thud, thud. She'd grown up in this neighborhood, attended the local public schools, made lifelong friendships, completed nursing school while still living at home, then planes at the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, and crashed near Shanksville. She joined the Army, served 3 tours in Afghanistan, and now she was back at her parents' home, working at the local hospital. She'd come full circle, welcomed back into a familiar embrace. Thud, thud, thud. Her pulse quickened. She broke out in a cold sweat. It was always worse on weekends, and especially on days of heavy cloud cover. Though the shooting range was miles away, it sounded close, too close. She began to run as though it would help, although she knew it wouldn't. It never did. But instinct and training took over. Thud, thud, thud. Memories came crashing back. It had been a daily occurrence, the soundtrack of work in field hospitals. White noise, the vibrations like many earthquakes beneath her feet, something to ignore until it couldn't be ignored, until they hit the base. Thud, thud, thud. The auras washed over her. She stumbled, she fell, she couldn't move. She felt the stings of fire ants. I'm home, I'm safe, I'm home, I'm safe, I'm home, I'm safe. The mantra calmed her, but still her body coiled. Muscle memory. Belinda, you okay, hon? tattooed arms pulled her up, steadied her, swept the ants from her leg. She knew the voice, Dan's, even though his masked face was a blur. Words swirled in her head, but she couldn't give them immediate voice. Thud, thud, thud. The gunshots sounded louder still, like full-out 4th of July loud, or perhaps it was her heartbeat echoing the rhythm. I'm home, I'm safe, I'm home, I'm safe, I'm home, I'm safe. I got you, soldier. Let me help you home. The screaming eagle on Dan's forearm came into focus, then the unmasked portion of his craggy face, so like that of Tommy Lee Jones that the neighbors jokingly called him Agent K after a few cold beers. Thud, thud, thud. She offered no resistance. She was home. She was safe. It was only fellow suburban dwellers killing paper with weapons of war. Kiddo? Yes, Sarge. Treadmill. That's what I use on the weekends. Stills the echoes. Terrorists won, Sarge. Our neighbors are afraid of imaginary invaders this time. They're prepping for another civil war, stocking up on ammo. Yeah, and yet we're the suckers and losers while goddamn Nazis are very fine people. Thud, thud, thud. They reached a tidy brick home, its lawn freshly mown, its covered front porch welcoming, with an American flag serving as a prominent centerpiece. No guns in my house, Sarge, nor in mine. They just live in my head. Been 45 years, but me too. Thanks, Sarge. Anytime, kiddo. Behind her closed door, Belinda's world was still once more. Treadmill, she said aloud, breaking the silence.
Thank you, Helen.
Yeah.
I like listening to everybody, but I always enjoy what you bring to the table, especially with the scars. I think, at least when I was younger, scars are supposed to be cool, right?
That was my very first published piece, 2002, in Literary Potpourri, which doesn't exist anymore.
That's so amazing, and I'm happy to always share this experience with you, and that you're here with us. Also, I have some notes here, and it's don't admit defeat. And our scars are the sum. We're the sum of all our scars, the visual ones and the ones that we don't see. And I think sometimes the ones we don't see are so important to who we are, where we're going, what we've been, and what we'll be. And art, again, everything here is proof that through art we can turn those scars into something positive and something strong and something that holds us and binds us together. So thank you again, Helen. And
appreciate it.
I look forward to speaking more. Okay, the next person that we have, I have my notes here in case you're wondering what I'm looking at. I'm looking at my notes. Is someone that is new to my world, new to my life. I'm happy to have them here and share. And so share a little about who you are, and everybody welcome Riley.
Hey everyone, I'm Riley. I'm the editor of a small press and a literary journal, and I'm going to be reading 2 poems tonight. They're both from my forthcoming chapbook, Hands of Years. So my first one is called Cass. Cass. Went to the blacktop the other day to count the shards of glass on the shoulder. Saw the cursive scream of tires, the abraded kiss of metal on concrete, ash-like bumps in black acrylic on the asphalt. Cigarette butts dropped by the officers who know the dead don't mind 2 hours in the fire. Me in broken glass on the street side. Saw an angel on a rock with a wire saw, crying as he tried cutting off his wings. Let me take the saw from him, set it aside. Sat in his blood on the rock with him. Didn't say anything. Thought of how she lit my summer, then the street at night. Now the humble sun haloed in our ambivalent sky, like her back's to us. We both watch her steady light, her silent swaying fire. She watches someone beautiful beyond us. Me and the angel watching her dance. All our lives, all our worlds, in her very nature. Now she's a little higher than both of us, a little higher than all of us. And the second one I'll be reading is called Father. Father, you didn't call me about the rapture today. 26 years of any day now, how everyone would pay. And I don't know how to tell you. I don't think God will save us from what's already happened. But rant, shout, break your voice against my head and let me hear it. Because I'd rather shiver in your noise than stand in your silence. Your heart was always a war drum. So stay and tithe your noise. Stay. And maybe one day gravity will reverse. All our ash will fall up, and all the world's fires will spiral into the upper atmospheres like jet streams. And all that'll be left on the ground is what's pure. All our traumas happened while the sky watched. So let's give it hell. Let's give it a taste, you and me. Whatever gives you war, whatever keeps you fighting. Keep your dogs this side of memory. Keep watching for pale horses and holes in the sky. Listen for the eagle. Just don't stop talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Riley. There's some. You're not in here, but I don't think you can see me. But you said after the dead don't mind 2 hours in the fire. I was like, whew. I was like, dang, that one. I have to, go back and sit with it. When I talk with my students about when we're reading and we engage with something or something hits us in some kind of way, the initial thing is we feel it first. We go, oh, dang, that was cool. And then we come back and we think about what we felt and how we felt about it. And so one day I'm going to email you. We're going to have a discussion because I would love to speak more about some of the words, especially, won't save us from what's already happened. There's so much power, and I'm happy that you can share it with us. So thank you, Riley. And I hope we get to do more of these and have you, continue to show up and share with all of us. Okay, so who's next? Yes. The next individual is someone who needs no introduction, and they can introduce themselves. And so everybody, please welcome warmly and with much, much, much love, Nadia.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for listening. My name is Nadia Noemi, and I decided to go with something a little bit more personal today. It is a poem followed by some writing afterwards. So I'll go ahead and begin. Okay. June. Oops, sorry. Waves of nostalgia crashed into my bay, directly flushing into my eyes, filling the insides to the brim, embedded with trinkets and memorabilia, sandy souvenirs whisked into my ears. A voice so warm and inviting invited me to understand the unexplainable. Mystery the universe hides in the shadows, but with every gulp of the waters from waves, I was nothing less than inebriated, and mistook sounds of footsteps as coming from the inside of my walls, coy clues left behind by spirits who wanted me to join them. I awoke from a dream about a clock whose hands still danced around time after I threw it against the ivory walls of my new hotel. Except when I woke from my forgiving slumber, I was still in the confines of my room. whose mailbox had a laminated insertion to change the names of the renters at the will of the people in white. They wrote all my secrets on clipboards with cheap pens from the dollar store and chewed so loudly on the caps that I could hear their teeth begging not to be ground. Silence whispered to me in intervals as I wrapped myself in hospital sheets, cascaded over my head like a commissioned veil. They told me all about the formidable ways that the people in white would eventually squeeze out of me, all my unholy secrets through their sarcastic patience. I tore my necklace of pearls, cautious to not allow them to drop on the floors of my bedroom, where they would mimic the harsh sounds of rain and roll out into the hallway where my family may trip on them. It was only springtime. I'm afraid that shadows and ghosts will touch my skin more than any other hand could, but the comfort of writing with freshly bruised hands, beaten with harsh words dressed with intimacy, fills me with what spirits failed to do. Unsure where to leave my packed bags, I abandoned them before walking upstage to recite the words I did manage to fill in my mind before coming here. A short woman with robotic kindness asked me to instead recite my date of birth, a medical card number, and a much more difficult question to decipher, my name. Her hand directed me to a room that felt restless, decorated insincerely with navy chairs, and a maple desk ornate with smiling strangers trapped in photo frames facing its guests. Odd I would be met with these faces, almost as though the woman didn't want to be reminded of how trapped they seemed. Her hand shuffled through stacks of unorganized papers with purpose as she simultaneously tapped with the tips of her fingers. The whirring of the printer hummed, and the woman got up from her seat to collect papers coming from the machine. Each paper unearthed the blunt rhetoric about my diseases, about all the ways that I thought, and only then did I become skeptical that I didn't hide them well enough. Her rough hands passed the torch of burdens directly back to me as I was forced to retract these documents of my darkest secrets. All at once, an empty room became quieter than the whispers floating around, clogging the air, but I collected those whispers, sorting through which must have been my secrets, and took them home to bury in the flower beds again. Yep, and that's going to be all this time around. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Nadia. The one thing I thought about when you were speaking about the teeth, then the try not to ground teeth, or the image, and tell me later exactly what it was. But it always makes me wonder and think about all the stuff that is part of us, just like Helen, that we don't see. You know, when we communicate with our toes and our feet and our ankles, where are they pointing? Where are they? Are they crisscross? Are they shaking? Are they not shaking? And what's interesting to me, at least in our Zoom age here, is what's missing. And I'm always curious about what's missing, because then we can know what to find and we can know what to hold on to even more. And, you know, I know that as I get older into my old age here, and you spoke about being trapped in a photo, you know, I'm like, oh man, I take more pictures. Where when I was little, I was like, hey, get that camera away from me, man. You know, I think I found a wrinkle once on my face, and that was not a good day. But no, very, you know, we're gonna speak more about the writing, and I very much enjoyed it. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that you were able to share this with us. And so thank you again, Nadia. And so next up we have, and this is part of the beauty that I really like about having these events, and where we invite anyone and anybody is welcome always, until you're an asshole, then, you know, don't come back. But, you know, friends of friends and colleagues of colleagues. And so this next reader I've never met before in my life, but someone said, hey, you know, can they come? And I was like, hell yeah, they can, you know, always, no matter what. And so Josh, please share a little bit about who you are. And I'm very excited to listen and listen to hear you speak and discuss in a little bit. So everybody, Josh.
Hi, everybody. I'm an ELAC alumni. I currently go to CSUN, and I'm pursuing a degree in creative writing. So I'm going to be reading 2 poems today, fairly short, but here we go. This first one is called The Wife of Lazaro. The wife and daughters of Lázaro did not imagine that he, though frail yet robust, could one day finish placing the final brick on the step to the pathways home. People often said it took him only a year to rebuild the home without assistance, but that was just a rumor. It took him about 3 years, and the home was still unfinished and unfurnished. Nobody understood how Lázaro passed away. His wife only left the home here and there for groceries and meals he would never taste. She dressed her daughters for school and marched right back into the closet, holding ties and suits that she laid every morning. Only now the aroma vanished, and so did her memories of it. People said it was intentional, that she wanted him gone. And so the wife of Lázaro heard the voices gathered at night to lavish in her sudden solitude. And none knew her emptiness was in the hands of a doctor who made the mistake of cutting out Lázaro's liver when his file stated an appendix removal. The second one is called Elijah Mclean. We stray apart to watch the sunset through a broken glass without a scratch. He played a tune for the birds and trees, for the doves in cages in the mountains above the Everest. Skin smooth as silk that glistens like garnet in the sun, and on his deathbed he remained full of life and beauty and poise, for the weight of 1,000 men compressed into this one lone man. And on the night nobody heard his cry, and in the year that followed, the truth buried in the sand until the tune played. And as the tune played, the sound surrounded all that was down below, and it rose to the sky, and the whole world knew of his song. And the whole world would know of the bow Elijah would give to you and I, and to them, and the whole world knew that in his song Elijah could never die. For this man knew of the encapsulated love, and with that love he extended it for another 1,000 years, as the band would always play on. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And just as Shakespeare said, we're all going to live forever too, because we can read, we can write, and we have this. The biggest thing that I'm taking from you, and I hope I can carry this forward forever, and maybe people watching now or watching in the future, is how much our alma maters mean to us. We went to ELAC, and at least when I was in ELAC, it was start at ELAC, go anywhere. And I ended up back at ELAC, so that's where I went. It was pretty cool. And, and my other alma mater, like I spoke to earlier, Mills, and our community that we create in the classroom, when we speak to each other, when we learn, when we're thinkers, we're academics, and we're critical thinkers, readers, speakers, and everything else, we find something in us that draws us back, and we come back home. And we find a home, and we find a place where we feel strong enough and confident enough and vulnerable enough to be all of those other things. And so if anybody out there went to ELAC, Cal State LA, CSUN, anywhere else, and Mills, of course, in Oakland, reach out to your friends, to your alumni family, to the ones without whom none of us would be where we are, and none of us would go where we're going. So thank you again, Josh. And I hope you could come to all of these. I'm very happy you're here. I'm glad that you decided to come, and we're very much appreciative and grateful. And someone said in the chat, San Jose State, you got to represent. And so our next reader is someone I went to school with in our undergrad at Cal State LA, and we met each other, and it was actually really cool. One day I was on the bus going back to Oakland, and it turns out he lives in Oakland. We were walking, and I was like, hey, I know you. He's like, holy shit, Matt. I'm like, what's up, guy? And it just happened like that. And we hung out on the bus, and we got to know each other a little bit better. And I reached out to him. He said, hell yeah, I want to read. And I said, well, hell yeah, I want you to read. Shoot. And so everybody, welcome. And Malik, share a little bit about yourself, of course. And I'm happy that you're here. So Malik.
Hello, everyone. My name is Malik McMillan. I am an English teacher. Matthew was right. I actually met Matthew in undergrad at Cal State LA. And then now I'm back in Oakland teaching 7th graders to read and write, which is super fun. I really am excited to be a part of this, and I'm very nervous about my writing. I talk to Matthew about this all the time. I'm very iffy about my work because I never really let people hear it, but you all will be the first, and I'm going to be just very open. This is something that I wrote. It was me writing to God. I was coming out when I realized my sexuality, and this is what I wrote. Dear God, it's me, Malik, and I know I have not spoken to you in a while or prayed in a long time. I don't know what it is about my anxiety that has been keeping me away. I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a lot of fear of talking to you. I think it's simply because I feel nervous. It's maybe because I feel nervous because you don't approve of my life. Or maybe you hate the way that I'm doing life. I've made tons of mistakes, but I definitely want to work on building our relationship. I've been sinning a lot and making tons of mistakes, so God, I'm asking you to forgive me of all of my sins. From hooking up with random guys, I find this to be a big issue with the way I'm doing things, and this is probably the reason why I keep finding myself in these hard times. But then again, I think you probably do like me. I keep finding myself in great situations, and I keep turning, what is it? Please bear with me. I keep finding myself in greater situations and connecting with great people and finding myself in great opportunities. So is my family correct? Was my family right? Is my lifestyle wrong? Do you really love me? Maybe you do. I guess I'll bring you on this journey with me. Thank you. And that's it. It was short, but that was
Thank
it.
you, Malik. And you know what? We all love you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm so happy that you're willing and able to be here and share with us, because it's something that gives me so much joy, and and not necessarily pride, but it makes me think, oh hey, maybe I'm doing what I should be, and I want to be here, and I want to share with all of you and have you share with all of us, and it's so powerful that you can. And I always want you to, no matter what. And so I'm happy to see. I haven't seen you in a while, so I'm glad, you can see each other again.
Yeah. It's been a minute. Thank you so much for giving me this space.
Right. Thank you, Malik. And so the last person here who is going to close us out, and then we will have our Q&A. And so everybody, if you're interested, ask questions, and all of the readers here, ask questions to each other, learn about our perspectives and each other's kind of approach to the page, especially if you're in school and it's an assignment to do that at some point. This is probably a really good, opportunity to ask questions to other authors and writers. And so this next individual I met a couple months ago, and that was a fun day. We're all hanging out with just a good group of people. And I remember I walked in and I was like, hey, who the fuck is this guy? No, I'm just kidding. A very, very nice guy. Very, very smart. And we had a good time. And so I'm happy that he's here to share his writing and his story. And so Jeremiah, the virtual floor is yours.
All right. Hello, everyone. I appreciate you all waiting around for me. My name is Jeremiah Cobra. That is my real name. My father gave it to me. Long story. I'm from Hartford, Connecticut. So from Connecticut, I went to school in Washington, D.C., Howard University, the real HU, since we rep in colleges and whatnot. I lived for 7 years in Japan. So I recognize Kei Komatsu no namae. So I speak Japanese, and whenever I recognize a name, I started chatting in Japanese, and just to see if she spoke Japanese as well. I've been living in California for about 7 years, and I'm going to read 2 poems. So the first one is autobiographical, and the second one is not, though it may sound like it, it's not. The first poem is from my first book. It's called Beauty in Perspective. I put this out back in 2018 because I was 35 and ashamed that I had not published anything yet. So I put this out. This one's called Tragedy to Triumph. It goes. I was sleeping on pissy mattresses Mama weeping and asking if God was meaning to cast us among the thieving and blasphemous. Daddy gave us beatings, the ashes mixed with the bleeding. The lashes gave me a reason to bask among all the demons, till at last I could not fathom another ass whooping nor be trapped in a perpetual baptism. So I'm never giving in, fighting until my ending is better than my beginning, because that's the meaning of living. Yeah, daddy, he beat the children, and mama, she kept the kitchen, but all her preaching and singing, they weren't healing his sickness. They were concealing his wickedness. Drunken drug addictions were hidden by benedictions. I'm more than a living witness, a victim from birth, conflicted, but my conviction was not to be afflicted by this sickness I lived with. So I'm never giving in, fighting until my ending is better than my beginning, because that's the meaning of living. So next were the homeless shelters. The second story of hell is the floor where all of the skeletons slept with beggars and felons. And yet the story gets better when words became my medicine. I learned my letters and the whole heaven lay out ahead of them. I could see past the pain and wrath. I aimed to last, so flames were ash when it would rain at last. So I'm never giving in, fighting until my ending is better than my beginning, because that's the meaning of living. I sojourned the path of Douglas, resolve of Harriet Tubman. I ventured far from the gutters where crimes are often unpunished. I earned my pride with prejudice, disregarding the devils and houses of Seven Gables for fables of the benevolent. I read both Ralphs, Ralph Ellison and Waldo Emerson. Hugo Dumas and Clemens helped raise a Yank from Connecticut, and I'm never giving and fighting until my ending is better than my beginning, because that's the meaning of living. The prologue I did not draft, but I'll write the remaining chapters with happily ever afters and passionate cries and laughter. But one day I imagine the masterpiece will be crafted. I'll sit among all the masses and have them ask me what happened. They'll say, "You made it from birth afflicted to be a victim. How'd you eschew the script and preserve all your convictions?" I'll say, by never giving in, fighting until my ending was better than my beginning, because that's the meaning of living. Thank you, thank you. So this last piece is one I recently wrote. It's technically unpublished, but it is on my website. I'll put any links in the chat if anyone's interested. I wrote this in response just to, all the things that went on in 2020. 2020 was a pretty, I think, creative year for me. I learned how to watercolor paint, which is cool. And I wrote another book that I'm particularly proud of. And I wrote this poem. It's called Riot, the Wars Within. It goes, someone tell me what I'm fighting for. Since I was born, I've been fighting wars. Looked in the mirror to find the cause. Saw not my face, only all the flaws, all of the blemishes, all of the instances when I turned scars into open sores. All of the pimples and divots and dimples I pivot to keep me from poking more. But I turn back, I cannot resist, wondering why is it I exist? When all this ugliness might persist, I take a moment to right my fist. Then I attack my reflection, splintered image of requited aggression. Is it that they made me violent, or is it the violence in me that inspires the devils? They're gonna know what I'm fighting for. Since I was born, I've been fighting wars. Looked out the window to find a cause. Heard the guns clapping and loud applause. That was my animus. Venom and cannabis got me to head for an open door. Victims and animals, criminals, cannibals, only inhabitants that I saw. I can't find beauty in all of this, and I can't fathom how light exists. When all this darkness at night persists, I take a moment to tighten fists. Then I throw bricks at the buildings, set a fire, hide the women and children, turn the heroes to the villains, or is it the villain in me that inspires the demons? Someone tell us what we're fighting for. Since we were born, we've been fighting wars. Look to the rubble and burning stores. Hope to find solace among the hordes. We are not criminals. We are just victims of symptoms of systemic discord. That was the sentiment born in those tenements taught by the ignorant to the poor. I can't turn back. I cannot resist, because now a monster inside persists, and only light from fires exists. Only darkness in my tightened fists. Now there's just cinders and ashes. Throw the living into imminent caskets. Leave the villages for savages, because the savage is me. I'm my story's antagonist. We need to know what we're fighting for, so our unborn won't be fighting wars. Looking to history for a cause, not to find heroes, but only flaws. only the blemishes, only the instances when men turn scars into open sores. No one is innocent. We are all sinners, insidious, rotten down to the core. We can't go back, we cannot repent. And yet, have we no right to exist? Are we just ugliness that persists? Are we doomed to only tighten fists? Then we attack our reflections, shatter all monuments, leave none erected, tatter every single document so there's no evidence, not of the good or malevolent. And when it's all said and done, we can all sit and wonder if we have yet made us free. And when it's all said and done and society's crumbled, we'll wonder still if we're free. And when it's all said and done, when with the world torn asunder, we'll wonder then if we're free. And when we've all said and done what will fetter our tongues, we will know we're no longer free. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
Thank you.
And one thing that really stuck with me is words are medicine. Absolutely. And I don't know if you know or if you believe it, but I think I kind of feel like words are very important to our existence. And I really like it. Someone said in the YouTube there, the musicality and the rhythm of it and all of that, it adds to the power and it adds to the heaviness. And I think that there's so many avenues that we could all go. And like you said, you picked up painting, and you picked up other ways to express and express ourselves and illustrate who we are as writers and artists and people and feelers and humans. And I really like what you wrote and the style of it and everything else. And so I'm happy, and I'm going to invite you every single time. I invited you last time, but I'm happy that you're here this time. And I'll put your information into the YouTube box there. And we do have a surprise reader. We have a surprise reader coming in fourth quarter, coming out of left field, coming out of nowhere. And they're going to share some work and hopefully be the first person to answer some questions in our Q&A. But
yeah, I apologize. I'm super late. I just don't care about anybody else's work. No, I'm kidding. I had a radio show that went late. Okay, enough of being an idiot. I'm gonna read one poem. All right, I'll just get into it. It's called It's So Cute, I Want to Kill It. 1. I want to curb the child of a fascist, punish a crushed seed into dust because, hey man, he could have been a cop. I go outside and fantasize about cosmic retribution, tributaries spilling over their edges, my legs growing longer until I'm a 13-foot piano standing above folly and nuance twirling into control. My teeth keys are crying fertilizer to sprout a garden of seething rage. 2. A fistful of flowers will do what a mouthful of words can't. We are a red-winged blackbird here trapped in America. Nails pinch the wings, singing an untapped tone. Let us alone. A return to the soil, a non-industrialized set of lungs breathing life into the rows of stalks with buds of bursting fingers that, when clenched, give me access to a new sliver of brain, a higher learning. 3. Somebody told me my hyperviolent fantasies are just a reflection of the men that I plan to be, so fuck it. I'll flay the skin off the back of a cop's kid and cook breakfast. Pigs deserve shit and less. Creating masks on call, camouflage caskets held together by knots of braided steel, oil-bound in murky twilight flickering out of existence. I'm finally a man. 4. I knew it was the end at the beginning, watching teleprompted scripts ceaselessly curving into a swirl, oozing from a pile of mud outside the Central Square McDonald's, performing a dramatic reading of the dollar menu. I left my old self on the sidewalk to feed the concrete flowers. I run the earth along my sleeves. The scent of wet dirt ushers me into a surrender, a collapse almost playful. 5. I want to hang a white man, It might as well be me. Use the last of my saliva to extinguish the eternal flame of JFK. Swirl the thinning threads around the nearest tree as decoration. Let gravity do its work and return when the roots are watered fully. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Matthew, for always putting these on. Again, sorry for being so late, but appreciate everybody still.
No, absolutely. I'm glad you were able to show up. Yeah, no, I was a little worried over here. No, but no, thank you. And thank you for sharing your work and sharing your creativity. And you know what, I would love to hear, and maybe you can do this or we could have a whole thing together, dramatic reading of every dollar menu.
Yeah, I've done some stuff like that. I think there's like an Instagram account that's like called Poems of Brands, where people do poetic readings of like the nutrition facts, or shit like that. So, I mean, there's definitely like a community there.
Absolutely. No, I think that'd be really dope. So what I'm going to do now for everybody is I'm going to set us up into the gallery view here. So everyone watching in the future, all your faces will show up. So if you're doing something weird, I'm not going to call you out. Don't, maybe turn the camera a little bit this way, and then we'll get our Q&A started. So let me get that set.
Clearly, I'm in the ultra black mode anyway, so you can't see me.
Yeah, you're all good. All right, here we go. Okay, so the way that I like these Q&As, and if you are uncomfortable and you want to take your face away, you can turn off your camera, turn off your video, and it'll remove you from the screen, so you don't have to worry about walking away or doing anything like that. But these, I'm always big on dialogue in my classes and everywhere else, and I like having dialogue. I like being able to listen to people and get kind of their perspective and their mind and their experience. And as writers, we all have kind of that one thing that pushes us and always draws us back. Maybe we wanted to go do something else and be a chef forever, or go have a professional life. And then 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, middle of the afternoon, and early in the mornings, we're still writing. We're writing when we're driving, when we're on the bus, when we're walking around, when we're doing nothing. We're writing. Our minds are going crazy. They won't let us sleep. They won't let us think. It won't stop thinking, and it just pushes us and pushes us. And there's something that draws us back. And so my first question for anyone and everybody is, what is that thing that you can't? You just can't stop it. It's always pulling you back into art. No matter what job you had, what career you had, what individual you had in your life that said, hey, you got to get a real job. What is it that's always pulling you back? And so anybody can go ahead at any time. There's no raising hands here. So go ahead.
Nothing's pulling me back. I'm trying to make this my full-time job. That's been the goal since like 3rd grade. I'm a little slow, but I'm starting to get there.
No, that's good.
I mean, yeah, I'll jump on that. I mean, this has been to do that has been like a dream probably since 8 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm lucky to be in like a service type job where like I teach high school, so I'm just serving students, and that's stable and full-time, and I can do tons of like creating on the side. So I, without just being an artist full-time, this is pretty beneficial combo.
Yeah.
But I don't know, as far as pulling me back, I guess there's no pulling me back. I was just kind of like born in it, like Bane.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a really good topic, or a good point also is, and the reason why Nervous Ghost Press exists and why I fought so hard to kind of bring these things together and to always have them and to not quit. There are many days where I just felt like throwing everything in and wrapping up and stopping forever. But, like you said, you were born with it. It's born in us. That's why it's always there. And if I didn't write, all that emotion would have gone into something destructive and, very destructive or ending or whatever else. And, so it turns into something that is life-saving, humanity-saving, relationship-saving, personhood-saving, friendship-saving, and everything in between and outside. And so I think that having us here and just looking at everybody, we're all artists, we're all thinkers, we're all feelers. We have emotions and we turn them into something beautiful, something we can hold on to, something we can share. And I know for a fact we all have different experiences just by the fact that there's 12 other people. And on YouTube, you only see, I think you see 9, but there are 3 other videos here. So I know how to count, I promise, at least up to 12. And, we all come from different places. We're all going in different places, but there's one thing that kind of tethers us, and it's this. It's, I have nightmares and you have nightmares, and we have nightmares about different things, but we wake up and we're afraid. And then we write about it. And then we feel a little bit better. And then tomorrow happens again. And even strangers that we've never met here, you're like, oh shit, hey, you felt that way too? I thought I felt that way. And then Helen's like, but Jeremiah, I felt that way. And then Amanda's like, wait a minute, Helen, you felt that way? You're calling everybody else like, this is weird. And it's amazing. And it feels like an invasion of privacy, because how do you know me more than I know myself? And I've never met you before in my life. And yet somehow you do. And so there's a question from a stranger I've never met before on the internet here on YouTube. Do you find it easier? And this is for anybody. And I want, of course, you never have to speak if you don't feel comfortable, but seeing how you all kind of have already spoken today, you're probably comfortable. And the question is, do you find it easier sharing it kind of virtual? And I'll give my thoughts on it, because, as we're in virtual schooling for the last year, I have my theories, and hopefully no administrators see it. But, is it easier in person, or is it easier like this? And one thing that I've noticed is in person, oh man, I got to go in person. I'm wearing weird clothes or whatever it is. People are going to judge me, but whatever. I'll just sit there in the back and keep to myself. And there's 30 other people who are taking some of the attention away. But here, it's just you. And it's not only just you, it's just your face. And your shoes, you can't, oh, hey, look at my shoes, distract yourself. You can't do that, because then it'd be kind of creepy if you were like putting your shoes and your feet up and into the screen. And what I've noticed is there's much more, I think, anxiety putting, camera on or start video, because it's just here. And when we want eye contact, we have to look at the dot on our screen, because if I'm looking at, let's say, Josh's face, I'm not looking at your eyeballs. I'm like down here, or depending on where you are. And so even though it's like this, you're all the attention of every single other person in the conference call and in the webinar or whatever it is on you. And so to answer that question, it's weird. It's a whole different dynamic. And I'm curious what you all think in in an artistic way, in an artistic sense.
I think, excuse me. For me, actually, I kind of like the video format because I find it more accessible. As someone who has a lot of anxiety around driving to places that I'm not familiar with, I have a lot of anxiety about like parking, like, is there a parking lot, or, stuff like that. Especially since like a lot of open mics would be at night. And as a woman, like going somewhere you don't know alone at night feels very dangerous. So for me, this is more accessible because like I'm in my room right now and I just have to log on. So there's a lot of safety and a lot less anxiety. And also there's less people like reading. So I feel like I can share more, which I also enjoy.
No, absolutely. And I like it too, because, you know, part of what we realized when I had these events is, you know, I think in January 9th, I told you we had people from India, we've had people from Europe, Canada, and other parts of the world where we couldn't have those in person, because even if I could, I'm not going to pay for someone to fly out here, you know. But it's such a great way to express and engage and meet. I have a dog down here, that's why I'm looking, is bugging me. And to meet people that you would have never met, and not only that you wouldn't meet them in person, you would have just never met them ever, because they're in different countries, but they're in different worlds, they're in different cultures, different lifestyles, different mindsets, different everything. And yet through this, and through what we can do when we build our communities and we show how strong we are together, we can bring the world together, and we can show that unity exists through art, unfortunately through pain, but also through compassion. And it's such a powerful thing. And, you know, no matter how stressed I am, I come on here, I feel better, you know. And I think it's kind of cool, the Malik and I story, where I'm from LA, he's from Oakland. I went to school in Oakland, he went to school in LA, and then we ended up back home. And, you know, we crisscrossed, and there's that sense of, I think as we spoke about it in one of our events, about home is where, you know, where we are and where our people are. And when I go back to Oakland every once in a while to see my friends and to see my new family members, I'm home. And then when I come back here, I'm home. And it's something powerful that really can't be expressed without art. And so I want to open it up. And I know that asking questions is like, you know, I don't want to say it's pulling teeth, because pulling teeth is probably easier. So whoever made that analogy is an idiot. But I hope that, you know, if any of you want to discuss with each other, and I always love hearing how you all speak and ask questions to one another, you know, it's open. I want to have an open dialogue. And so anybody can ask anybody anything, you know, don't get too personal, of course, but about writing anyways. And so I'll shut up for a while and just kind of listen.
I don't know if this helps break the ice, but there's literally like a chat going on, you know, there's like conversation in the chat. And it just very much reminds me, I'm a teacher and I'm teaching kind of this hybrid online in-person thing. I teach grammar and writing too, just like Malik. And whenever you say that, no one says anything on Zoom. You'll be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna open up the floor and you guys just kind of go at it, and no one will say anything. But if you look at the chat, it is going, you know, everyone's going ham in the chat. And unfortunately, they can't see that on YouTube. So there's that. I guess one question I kind of have is, what, for the most part, what inspires everyone to write the things that they write? Is it simply just personal? Because so I did 2 poems. One of them was personal. The last one I did was very much from a third person perspective. Like I wrote it in first person, but it's, the goal was to kind of write a poem from someone else's perspective that's kind of going through or visualizing everything that's going on, you know, going on in our current kind of political society or whatever. So, and that was the first time I did that. So whether I did it well or not, you guys be the judge. But what kind of inspires you all to write what you write? What's usually your source material? If anyone wants to jump on that.
Oh, can I jump on that?
Of course.
I think for me, I always wanted to write, but I just never knew how. And I think, like, I remember sitting in classes with Matthew, and we'll be in class and I'll just be in my notebook just writing. And I think what inspires me is just life experiences. I wouldn't say that I am strong on the poetry side, but I'm definitely love doing like essays and journaling and just writing like that, because then that really goes to my experience. And one thing I remember people always telling me is like, Malik, you're a storyteller. You are good at telling stories. And I feel like that's where my strengths are. So whenever I have an idea or I have a life experience, I'm like, oh, I got to write this down. This is definitely a story. This is definitely something I should share. And I think just life experiences is definitely the motivating piece when it comes down to my writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. For me, yeah, I always come back to kind of an autobiographical place. And it always comes back to, I'm someone like a lot of creative people. I have a host of mental illnesses, and being in and out of counseling therapy, they're always trying to get you to express yourself and to explain what's going on with you, what happened. And I found that in those sessions, I would always come up with these metaphors and stuff. And I was like, well, hey, I should write that down. And it became these longer pieces. And, you know, once I started sharing those with other people, people found them, you know, they could relate to me, and I got less lonely. And it was a way to, you know, be able to kind of explain myself in some ways to everyone else. So I'd say, yeah, it always, to me, kind of comes back to my life experiences with my disability.
Okay. Anybody else? Has anybody ever written a poem in third person, or written any kind of narrative in third person?
I have definitely become a fan of doing that. Sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking to say like me and I in poetry and prose. And so writing it in third person kind of allows like more space in between myself and like the reader to maybe perhaps say more than I would have if I was saying like I and me.
Sure.
And so I've definitely been doing that more often. And to be like more conspicuous, I'll use like a masculine pronoun instead of like she, you know, she went here. I'll say he went here, and it like provides a lot more space to share something that might be more intimate that I may or may not feel comfortable saying with I.
Sure, that's really interesting, because I do something very similar. When I write in the first person, it's usually because it's not necessarily my perspective. I'm sorry, it's not necessarily my, like an autobiographical piece. It's something that I heard from someone else, or someone else kind of shared a story with me. And I find that writing it in first person makes the reader kind of connect with it more, because whenever you write in the first person, you're always, you're more vulnerable, and you're just kind of, you get people to identify like, this is really who I am. And more often than not, especially in my story writing, if it's in third person, it's probably more autobiographical than that. So there's my cheat code. We're the only people that know that. Don't tell anyone outside of the Zoom call or YouTube or whatever.
Totally. And that all related to one of the questions in the comment section here is, have you ever been too afraid to share your work because of how emotional, how raw it is? And I think part of the strategy that Nadia spoke about and Jeremiah kind of touched on too is, well, I'm gonna shift it to somebody else. Now it's not my emotions, it's this person, it's some character I created. Hey, don't attribute the character to the author. Hey, that's a cardinal sin there, buddy. That's a literary sin, but absolutely, I think, that fear, and what I try and address in my life when I'm doing this, and I always get nervous right before I have all my notes, all of my notes are all color coded. I don't know if you can tell. But I have all my notes, and right before I hit start, right before 6 o'clock or whenever it is, you get that, oh man, someone dropped a cinder block on my face, and then it fell on my chest, and now my chest hurts and my face hurts. And, but then we can go, oh my gosh, okay, that sucks. That's horrible. I'm afraid, I'm scared. But hey, I'm with all of you. And just like in the Guardians of the Galaxy, they held the rock, and all the comic book people don't come at me, but they held the rock, and then they held the hand and the hand and the hand and everybody, and they were strong together, and they were able to endure it and whatever else. And so part of, I think, to answer that question, and then other people can, when you are afraid to speak, how do you find the courage to go through with it? And I find the courage in that I'm standing up with people who are also afraid and who also feel it and fear it, and yet are together with me and all of that kind of stuff. And we come together, we share it. And then afterwards, we're best friends. And Malik just left, so I want to say, everyone, thank you, Malik. I'm glad that he was able to come. He had to go and get some work done. I'm glad he was here. And so, anybody, truly, the invitation is always open. Send me an email, ghosts@nervousghostpress.org. I'll put up that graphic again later on. And one day I'll find a way to put up a graphic and have my face there or whatever it is, but it'll be all, super cool and looking, but we're not there yet.
I just wanted to,
yeah, go ahead.
Right, I just wanted to thank you again, Matthew. As I told you the last time I read the piece in Writing for Life, really, it was hard to get through it because, again, it related to my son, and that's the only thing that really gets me totally almost impossible to read without breaking out. It was difficult to get through, but I made it. So, and the things that are more personal to me, that was my pain, that was my strength, that was my survivorship. I can get through that with no problem because I know I'm here, I'm good, but going through things about my son totally wrecks me. But I'm glad I was able to put it into writing and share it with you and have it in writing. It's just, yeah, it felt great.
Absolutely. One thing that I always try to, and then I'll leave it open to everybody else, is I try to, when I think about how I'm able to be here, and when I think, I shouldn't be a professor, I should be, digging whatever and building things and using my hands and all that kind of stuff. And I try and tell my students and, people who ask me is, well, if you weren't supposed to be here, you wouldn't be. And, I'm not the most spiritual person or anything, but I do believe that if you weren't supposed to, you wouldn't, because you're here. And how do we know you're supposed to be, or that that's the right time and that's the right place? Because it did, and it happened. And we know that it happened because it did happen, and we know that it should have happened because it did. And then it gets all philosophical, and I don't like philosophy because it confuses me. But, so anybody, how, we come back, how do you find the courage to either write about it? Because I know sometimes, I've only written maybe 3 or 4 poems in the last 2 years because I'm too afraid to see what I write. And so how do you find the courage to not only share and to speak the words, but how do you even find the courage to address them and put them on paper?
I think it's harder not to put them into writing, because if I didn't put it into writing, I'd go nuts. I would be insane if I were not able to release everything that's going on in my head, truly. So it's less courageous to write than it is to keep it inside, at least for me. Truly, it's just. And folks,
yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, I feel like, as what you said, like it is definitely less courageous to be able to even share it, especially like just speaking about certain things. Like it gets so easy to like just continuously like talk, but when you're like writing on paper, you're kind of forced to not be so repetitive when you're like talking about certain topics. So it kind of gets easier. It is very hard to share. I find it easier to even write it on paper because I don't really share much of my work. So it's really something that like it's mine, and I know that like I'll keep it like safe. Once it's out there, that's where it kind of gets like nerve-wracking, because it's open to judgment and criticism, which can be kind of scary as a writer because it could be discouraging as well.
I don't necessarily want to get philosophical or psychological because I know nothing about those things, but I'm always, it never really occurs to me that anything that I've done is particularly brave until someone else points it out. And I wonder if that's just the essence of courage, or the essence of getting something done, or just when something just needs to be done, you do it. If you saw someone, I don't know, if you saw someone burning up in a building or something and you had the ability to help, I doubt many people would stop to wonder how brave they were before they did it. They just go do it. And I wonder, I mean, I'm just kind of ranting about it, but I feel like that's more or less the case when it comes to writing. When I first started writing, I needed to put it down, so I put it down. I definitely think maybe performing is the harder part, because you know.
Right.
But they're getting it on page, or to get it on paper, that's usually the easy part.
For me, it depends on whether I have an agenda, and I don't think it's wrong to have an agenda when you write, but I think it's really different when I don't. If I'm editing something, if an editor says, hey, I need you to do this in this scene, or this scene is lacking this, or I really wish you pushed it this direction, then I have an agenda I have a goal to reach. And so I write with a lot of focus. And sometimes it'll take me somewhere unexpected, but it doesn't necessarily feel brave. It feels like I'm doing a job, and it feels contained. It feels good like that. When I have found that I have an agenda, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write something really impactful about this. I fail, because I'm trying too hard. I'm so focused on it that I censor myself before the words even come out, because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to hit the mark. So some of the stuff where, just like what you said, Jeremiah, like you didn't think it was brave in the moment, but someone else pointed that out. I've had that same thing happen. It was usually the thing I started writing where I wasn't sure it was going to go. I had to start putting something down because something was in there. But if I look too closely at it, I'll censor myself. I won't write about it. So I just get it out.
Right. That's actually an interesting point. And it reminds me, this is what I think. I think it takes, I'm not sure what the word is, and I'll have to come back. It takes something different to write it. What takes bravery, what takes actual courage is to edit.
Yeah.
I think editing takes a shitload of bravery, because you have to go back and read what you wrote. And sometimes it really sucks. And the first thing you want to do when you read something you wrote and it sucks is just throw it in the trash and hide from it and pretend it never happened. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage and some fortitude and maybe determination to sit there and say, I'm going to deal with these shitty words on this page and turn them into something good. And I tell
you what, I'm an old fart, a really old fart. And I come back to works that I wrote 20, 30 years ago. So much easier to edit those because the objectivity is completely there. I was a totally different person than when I wrote those.
Yeah.
I haven't fallen in love with those little darlings anymore. That's gone. It's so easy to edit when you have, I'm almost 63 for crying out loud. So I've written a lot over the years, and it's so much easier just to go back and just, that's why I love flash fiction. Get it down to 1,000 words. It really forces you to focus and really think about what particular word really is necessary and what can just go fall by the wayside. So, and folks, it's almost 11 o'clock here. I need to get to bed.
Okay.
I mentioned I'm an old fart.
11 o'clock is good enough.
It's really been enjoyable, and I appreciate it again, Matthew, and appreciate everyone else reading. Y'all were very brave, and I appreciate that so much.
Great to see you, Helen.
Good to see you. And I will say good night.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
I want to say, too, as we say goodnight to Helen, and what Helen spoke about is, we come back to something we wrote about when we were younger, when we were more immature, before we experienced something in our life that changed our point of view, and we hate it because it's not us, or it's not us now. And I certainly have those, and I'm sure you all do too, where we look back at something we wrote in our teens or early 20s, and for those old ones of us, like, in our, I'm not even going to say the number, but we look back and we think, oh my gosh, who the fuck was that loser? This is disgusting, Or you actually thought that was cool, or dude, I wish I could go back there. You thought that was hard. Yeah, you wait 2 more years, bro. And part of the way that I try to deal with it, because I certainly look at a lot of my stuff and I look back and I'm like, you wish you can go back to that time and complain about those things, bro, But part of what I like, and part of what I like to do with the press and with all of you, is to, pay respect and honor that that's where we were, and that it wasn't fake. It was still genuine, even though we disagree now. In that moment, it was in our bones, it was in our blood, it was in our muscles, our hair, our not hair, our sides of our faces, whatever it was. And it was who we were in that moment 100%. And so you can sit there and you can say, you know what, I hate it. It sucks. It's boring. It's not captivating. It's disengaging. And yet I will stand by it 100% because it meant something. And if I were never there, well, then I would never be here. And I think part of that is that scariness that Helen was speaking about, that we keep it in. Because once you put it on paper, you can crumple it up, like Jeremiah said too. You can throw it away. You can set it on fire. You can rip it up and you can eat it, and then you can dump it out and say, ha, you're just a steaming pile of shit. You ain't nothing to me anymore. But when it's just stuck in us, then it becomes the poison, and it becomes that heat and that hatred and that violence that has nowhere to go because we're not letting it go. We're not putting it on something that we can control. It's that irrational heaviness that no matter how much you can squat or deadlift, you can never lift because it's you. And so then that courage, like Helen said, is putting it on paper. Maybe it's not speaking it, because sometimes how many of you, and I know I've done it, and maybe we can discuss too, is there's something bothering you, and the minute you speak the words, you're just like, oh my gosh, tears. Well, you can think about it all the time, but the minute you say it, you're like, oh, what's happening to me? And go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I kind of have an anecdote, like on the touching upon the topic of like having courage to share our work, and how do we do it, like as writers, or how does anyone perform what they've created to people who don't know them? And I was told that my work was, at some point I received feedback, and I was told that my work was too abstract in terms of my creative work, and that's fine. It's an objective opinion. And it like put me down for a long time, because it made me feel like perhaps people truly didn't understand me. And I felt like the effort that I was putting into my writing couldn't be felt or heard by other people. And like someone said earlier, it's okay to write like with an agenda sometimes. It's your prerogative as a writer. But I guess that courage resides in accepting that what you make like will fall deaf on some ears. And some people will be able to see directly through it and really understand where you're coming from. And I think any feedback given from my writing, me personally, is so generous and so admired by people who try to understand it. So I think that courage comes from just really writing for yourself. As cliche as it sounds, it's for you at the end of the day, and it's for you to relate to and like be proud of, and feel heard. So that's where I really learned to just accept it, that some people just won't get it, won't understand it. I think the difference is that people will try to understand it or care,
For me, the work that's always hardest to share now is the stuff that's been previously published of mine from like 2016, because and this is work that's now in like Night Music Journal, particularly those poems that I wrote that are in there, because I was in a really toxic place at that time. And those poems are about me doing something hurtful to someone else. And they're so raw and so emotional and so not me now. And so it's always easier to read work where you're like, something was done wrong to me and I'm hurting. And it's always harder to read work where you're like, no, I was the really toxic one and I really hurt someone else. So that's the work that's really hard for me to share now, because it's like you're confessing something, you're owning up to a behavior that was toxic. So, but it's like, I think it's worth sharing now because, no one's perfect. And, so I guess it's like, you can't really cancel yourself. What was I going to say? Oh, but I feel like it's worth sharing because they did think it was worth publishing. So there is some like validity in that it is kind of worth sharing, if you will.
You know, there's one thing that I believe in, and I think Jeremiah, you said you had to go, but you know, I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming. I'm so happy that you're here and able to share. And I hope that we could always share every month. Remember, we got to have the same group plus others. You know, at some point it's going to be 300 people sitting here and nobody's going to be able to speak because there's too many people. But you just have your face, you can smile, and then we'll be
Poetry
done.
lounge. You guys been in the poetry lounge? Oh no, yeah, the
Yes,
poetry
I miss it so much.
lounge. Yeah. There's so many people. They're all on the stage.
I miss it
Like,
so much.
yeah.
You feel like engulfed by everybody. It feels so great.
And it's
I
so
miss
professional.
that.
Yeah, we can do that here. Let's do that here. I'm down for that.
Absolutely. But
Okay.
thank you again, Jeremiah. And to build off what Amanda was saying, and something that I truly believe, and I hope that, you know, Nervous Ghost Press can keep that kind of mentality going, is that, you know, whether or not our voices are important enough to be listened to or shared or heard or whatever, they're important enough to be spoken. And they're important enough to write them down and send them into the universe and to own them and to share them and to give them up and resolve and absolve ourselves of whatever weight that they carry, no matter what, because they're ours. And if anybody tells me I can't, well, then guess what? You're not invited. Easy, you know, right here. Oh, sorry, bro. And, you know, as far as in whatever industry that we're in, you know, and the industry that we broke into, being where we're from for the most part and who we are and what we believe and what we look like and how we sound and the words we use and the food we eat and all those things, we broke in and say, hey, you know what? Why can't my words hold just as much meaning as yours? Or why can't my experience be just as hurtful or traumatic or compassionate or painful or loving as anyone else's? And they are. And we share them. And that's one hill. And I spoke with, you know, some people. I said, you know, I have a lot of hills and I haven't died on one yet, but that is one hill I will die on. And I'll die on it every single day for as long as it takes until you beat it out of me, you know. And if you can beat it out of me, then you deserved it. No, I'm just kidding, you know. But, you know, the thing is, I truly, Nervous Ghost Press truly believes in the power of all of it, in the power of sharing, and the power of coming together, and the power of sharing what makes us afraid, what makes us scary, what makes us fearful, what makes us weep, and what makes us stay up at night thinking we're nothing. When we're here, we're everything, and we're nothing at the same time. We're just talking to a fucking green light on my computer screen. I ain't nobody, but we're all nobodies together. And
We're on a floating rock.
Exactly.
In the middle of space.
In a vast nothingness. And, you know, so before I end us here and I stop the broadcast, if anybody has any questions, you know, you want to ask each other. If not, then I'll go ahead and do my closing, you know, statements that I have to do, obligatory by my boss, which is myself. But, you know, I got to listen to somebody. Okay, so thank you everybody for tuning in to the very first Nervous Ghost Press open mic every month. Unfortunately, it's on the same third Saturday as another event, and so maybe we can work together and we'll figure something out. You know who you are, and I'm glad that you're here and you're able to join us and come together and work together and build our communities up instead of down. I'll even settle for sideways. And you know, our next Nervous Ghost Press open mic is in April, National Poetry Month. And so hopefully we'll all be able to come together and share and do whatever we want. Is on April 17th at 6:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. One day we'll do one early in the day, but it doesn't make as much sense to have whiskey and wine at, you know, 12 o'clock in the afternoon without being, you know, ridiculed about it.
It's 6 o'clock somewhere.
And so, you know, thank you everybody. Again, you can find us at, oh wait, I don't have it up. Hold on. Embarrassing here. There we go. Our new website, our new email address is nervousghostpress.org, ghost@nervousghostpress.org. Follow us, like us, comment. You can send us messages at any time on all social media platforms. We always answer. And everybody is welcome. Everybody is honored and heard. And I hope that you can find comfort, you can find a place, you can find a home in this community, and we can show the positivity of our community, because there's so much negativity in the world, and we can turn it into something palpable, turn it into something beautiful. And so thank you, everybody. I am going to stop the broadcast, but I'll keep our room open so we can discuss afterwards. But thank you again, everyone. Glad you're here with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.